I had always believed that my marriage was built on trust, love, and an unspoken understanding that nothing could come between us. But that trust, the bedrock of our 12 years together, shattered in an instant. It happened one quiet evening like any other, but that night was destined to change everything that I'd been working late at the office, a project that seemed to consume me more than it should have. My mind was distracted and I didn't think to check the home security feed that night. I rarely did. My husband Derek always worked from home and we had our routines simple, predictable. He'd pick up the kids from school, help with homework, and we'd have dinner together before I headed back into work. Life was comfortable. Or so I thought. That I had been home for a few hours, trying to wrap up my work and find a moment to relax, when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was from the home security system. I wasn't sure why it pinged. The kids were at their grandparents' house, and Derek had already left for a late-night meeting. Curious, I opened the live feed to check on the house. At first, I saw nothing out of the ordinary, the porch light casting shadows, the moonlight dappling through the trees in the backyard, a calm and quiet street. But as I scrolled through the different cameras, something caught my eye. There, on the kitchen camera, I saw Derek. I wasn't expecting to see him home. He should have been at that meeting, but there he was, sitting on the kitchen counter, laughing, looking into someone's eyes. Her eyes. My heart skipped a beat. The woman was beautiful. Her dark hair cascaded down her shoulders, and there was something about the way she moved, the way she leaned into Derek's space. They were too close. The way he touched her hand. The way she smiled and he smiled back. Too familiar, too intimate. My pulse quickened. No, this couldn't be real. I had to be imagining things. The footage had to be distorted, a trick of the light, right? But I kept watching. I zoomed in on the footage, my fingers trembling. They were talking. Derek was laughing at something she said. And they were kissing. Just a soft, slow kiss at first. But the moment it happened, it felt like the air in the room thickened. Time slowed. The reality of it hit me like a punch to the gut. I had to stop watching. But I couldn't. I couldn't tear my eyes away, as if some part of me needed to understand it fully. The next few minutes felt like hours. I watched them, my husband and this stranger, together in the place I considered my sanctuary. The place I thought was ours. Their hands roamed over each other, unashamed and lost in the heat of the moment, and the flood of emotions that followed overwhelmed me. Rage, hurt, confusion, betrayal. How had I missed this? How long had this been going on? I felt sick, as if my insides were being twisted and wrung out. The house felt suffocating. My home, where I'd raised our children and laughed with Derek, suddenly felt foreign. The walls closed in on me. I couldn't breathe. I sat there staring at the screen, too numb to cry, too stunned to yell. My mind raced, trying to process what I was seeing. The disbelief was like a veil over everything. How was it possible that Derek, the man I had spent years with, the man who had promised me forever, could betray me like this? I knew the only thing I could do was confront him. There was no avoiding it. But even as I dialed his number, my hands shook, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried to steady my breath. He picked up on the third ring. "Derek, where are you?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm just on my way home, babe." "Why?" I felt like screaming, but I didn't. "You're not at your meeting?" I asked, each word carefully measured. "No, it wrapped up earlier than I thought." "Why?" I took a deep breath. "I'm looking at you right now. At our house. With someone else." There was silence on the other end. Long, agonizing silence. "Lena, please," he began, his voice soft but strained. "No. Don't you please me, Derek. Don't you dare." I hung up on him, not waiting for his excuses, his explanations. The truth had already been laid bare. And I was done with the lies. I stood up and walked to the front door, the cold air hitting me as I stepped outside. I needed space to think, to breathe. I couldn't process it all right then, not when I was drowning in hurt and disbelief. Derek showed up shortly after. He didn't come inside. He stood there in the driveway under the dim light, looking like a man who'd just been caught in a lie too big to cover. His face was pale, his shoulders slumped as if the weight of his own actions had finally caught up with him. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Lena," he said, his voice breaking. "It just happened. I'm so sorry. But sorry didn't fix this. Sorry didn't take away the image of them kissing in my kitchen." Sorry didn't undo the years of trust he had shattered. I don't care, Derek, I said, my voice firm despite the tears that burned behind my eyes. I've watched everything and I know. You don't get to do this to me. To us. He took a step forward, but I held up my hand, stopping him. I need space. I need time. We're not talking tonight. The night stretched on and I lay in bed, unable to sleep, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened. That moment, the betrayal, would linger in my mind forever. I didn't know where I'd go from there. Could our marriage survive this? Could I ever look at him the same way again? Would I be able to rebuild the trust that had been shattered so carelessly? The answers were unclear, but one thing was certain: I couldn't go back to how things were. I couldn't unknow what I'd seen, and I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. What I did next was up to me, and I had to decide how to move forward, whether it was to repair my broken heart, walk away, or choose something I never thought I would have to choose. A new beginning, one without him. The night after I discovered Derek's betrayal, time felt like it had stopped. The quiet ticking of the clock in the living room echoed through the house, but it couldn't drown out the chaos inside my mind. I sat there in the darkness, unable to look away from the empty spot where Derek had once stood in my life. My partner, my best friend, the man I thought I knew better than anyone. I still couldn't believe it. I kept replaying the footage over and over in my mind. The way he had looked at her. The way his hands had wandered to places they should never have been. His laugh, his eyes lighting up in a way I hadn't seen in years. No, he was mine. I had built a life with him. A family. We had plans. How could this happen? I was suffocating in my thoughts. I needed to talk to someone, anyone. I reached for my phone, scrolling through the contacts. But who could I call? My best friend, Emily? She would tell me to leave him, to pack my bags and never look back. But I wasn't ready for that, not yet. My mind was still racing. How could I tell her this? How could I even say the words aloud? My hand shook as I put the phone down and rubbed my face. The last thing I wanted to do was confront Derek right away. I needed time to figure out how I felt, what I wanted, and how I could face him without breaking down completely. I decided to go for a walk. The cool night air would help clear my head, I thought. The sky was starless, a thick cloud cover blotting out the moon. The streetlights cast a pale yellow glow on the pavement, and everything seemed eerily still. My footsteps echoed as I walked, my thoughts louder than the world around me. I replayed the images again. Derek smiling, touching her, kissing her. I had seen everything. I had watched it. I had no idea how long they had been together, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that this was happening under my roof. In our home. A place where we were supposed to be safe. A place where I had thought nothing could break us. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I couldn't let anger control me, not yet. I needed clarity. I needed to understand why. I needed to know why he would do this, and I needed to find out if there was any chance to salvage what we had, or if it was even worth salvaging. My thoughts were interrupted by a sudden noise. A car drove by, headlights cutting through the darkness, and I realized I had been standing in the middle of the street without even noticing. Shaking myself from my stupor, I started walking back toward the house, each step heavier than the last. When I returned, the house was eerily quiet. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of the clock. The security cameras blinked in their usual places, as though they had no idea the horror I had just witnessed through their lenses. Derek was home. I could hear him upstairs, moving around in our bedroom, and I knew I had to face him. This wasn't something I could avoid. But how? How do you look at someone you've loved for over a decade and confront them about something so utterly devastating? I stood at the foot of the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to scream, to demand answers right then and there. But something inside me told me to take a breath and think this through. I didn't want to make any rash decisions. I needed to be in control, not him. I couldn't let him manipulate me into accepting his excuses or his guilt. I had to stay strong. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like an eternity. The moment I reached the bedroom door, I paused, my hand on the knob. Inside, I could hear Derek pacing, his footsteps quick, like he was anxious. He was waiting for me, and I was ready. Ready to make him answer for what he had done. But was I ready to hear the truth? I opened the door, and there he was, sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. When he saw me, he froze, his face pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and guilt. "Lena," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Please just hear me out. I'm so sorry. I closed the door behind me, the sound of it latching echoing in the small room. I didn't sit down. I didn't want to be close to him. I stood there rooted in place, staring at him like he was a stranger. This man was no longer the person I thought I knew. Sorry, I said, my voice cold, distant. Is that what you're going to say to me, Derek? Sorry? After everything I saw? After everything I trusted you with? His eyes welled up with tears. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. A mistake. I scoffed. This wasn't a mistake, Derek. This was a choice. You chose to do this. You chose to betray me, to betray our family. And you did it in my kitchen in our home, as if I wouldn't find out. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I've been feeling lost for a while now. We've been distant and… Stop. My voice cracked for the first time, but I swallowed the sob that threatened to escape. Don't you dare blame this on me. You've been distant? You've been feeling lost? What about me, Derek? What about how I've been feeling? I could feel the tears stinging at the corners of my eyes, but I fought them back. I couldn't break down in front of him. Not yet. I've been working late, staying busy, and you were fine with that. You didn't mind, did you? I continued, pacing in a circle. I've been doing everything for this family, Derek. And you couldn't even have the decency to tell me when things weren't working for you. Instead, you found someone else. Someone who could make you feel better. Someone who could. No, Lena, please. That's not it. You've been so caught up in work and No. I shouted, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. Don't you dare try to make it sound like this was somehow my fault. I trusted you. I gave you everything. I gave you my heart, my loyalty, my time. And you repaid me with this. With her. I couldn't bring myself to say her name. It felt like it would burn my tongue. I don't know what to say, Derek whispered, his voice breaking. I love you, Lena. I do. But I've messed up beyond belief, and I don't know how to fix it. Please don't leave me. Please. I stared at him, and for a brief, heart-wrenching moment, I saw the man I had married. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. Don't ask me what to do, I said, my voice cold and steady now. You've made your choices. Now I have to make mine. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving Derek behind, his sobs echoing faintly in the distance. The next few days passed in a blur of silence and raw emotions. The house felt empty even when it was full. The children were still away at their grandparents', and I was alone with my thoughts. I couldn't make a decision just yet. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to walk away either. What Derek had done had fractured the foundation of our marriage, and now I had to decide if I could ever rebuild it or if the cracks were too deep to mend. The hardest part wasn't the anger, the betrayal, or the heartbreak. It was the uncertainty. The question of whether love could survive after everything had been torn apart. Could I ever look at Derek the same way? Could I ever trust him again? And most importantly, could we ever rebuild our marriage from the rubble of his betrayal? For now, all I had were questions. And with each passing day, the answers seemed further and further out of reach. The next few days blurred into one another, a haze of uncertainty and pain. I went through the motions, pretending everything was normal, even though my heart felt like it was being crushed with every beat. The house was so quiet without the usual sounds of Derek's laughter, the kids' chatter, the hum of everyday life. It was like the whole house was holding its breath, waiting for something. For me to make a decision. For Derek to say something that would make it all right. But nothing felt right. Derek barely spoke to me after that night. When he did, it was in whispers, his eyes pleading for forgiveness, for understanding. I didn't know how to look at him anymore. His words were nothing but hollow echoes in my mind. How could I listen to a man who had broken everything we'd built? He was apologizing, but the apology felt empty, like a well-worn script he had memorized for situations just like this. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung. It was the deceit, the years of his lies, the fact that I had been so blind to everything. He had been so careful, so calculated. And I had been too trusting, too oblivious to notice. I had always prided myself on being perceptive, on knowing the ins and outs of our relationship. We had been together for so long. 12 years. 12 years of sharing dreams, fears, laughter, and heartbreaks. But all of that had been a facade, a beautiful, shining illusion. And now I could see the cracks in the surface, the places where he had hidden his true self, his true desires. I tried to talk to him about it. I had to. It was the only way I could begin to process the chaos that was swirling inside me. I wanted answers. I wanted to know when it started, how long it had been going on, and why he thought it was okay to betray me like this. But when I sat down with him, the words stuck in my throat. I couldn't look at him without feeling that pit in my stomach. The anger was still there, sharp and hot, but it was tangled with something else, something darker. Fear. Fear that I wouldn't get the answers I needed. Fear that the truth would be even worse than what I had already seen. Derek, I whispered, the words heavy in my mouth. When did it start? He flinched. The guilt in his eyes was almost unbearable to witness. I don't know, Lena. It wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't like that. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him understand how much he had hurt me. But instead I just nodded. You don't know? Or you don't want to tell me? I never meant for this to happen, he said, his voice cracking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You keep saying that, Derek, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. But sorry doesn't fix anything. You've broken something inside me. Something I can't fix. And I don't know if I can ever forgive you for that. He reached for me, but I pulled away, instinctively recoiling. Please, Lena. Please don't say that. I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know what happened. I felt disconnected. I wasn't happy, and when she came into my life, she made me feel seen. I was foolish. I know that now. I felt sick. It was the same tired excuse. You were disconnected, I repeated, barely able to control my voice. And that justifies you betraying me? That justifies bringing another woman into our home, into our lives? While I was busting my ass at work, while I was taking care of everything, you were looking for someone else. Someone who could make you feel better. I was wrong, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I know I was. But I swear, Lena, it meant nothing. It was a mistake. A stupid, careless mistake. Please don't leave me. I wanted to believe him. Part of me still loved him, still longed for the man I thought I knew. But the damage had been done. And now I had to make a choice. A choice that would change everything. I stood up, my legs shaking. I don't know if I can stay here with you, Derek. I don't know if I can look at you and pretend everything is fine when I know what you've done. When I know the truth. He grabbed my hand, his grip desperate. Lena, don't do this. I love you. I need you. I'll do anything. Just please don't leave me. I pulled my hand away, the tears finally threatening to fall. I don't know if I love you anymore, I whispered, the words cutting deeper than I ever imagined. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. You've taken everything I believed in, Derek. Everything. And now I'm left with nothing. He stared at me, his face a mixture of pain and disbelief. Please don't say that. You're my everything, Lena. You always have been. But the more he spoke, the less I believed him. His words were empty. The love I once felt for him felt so far away now, like a distant memory. I didn't know how to reach it anymore. All I could see was the betrayal, the lies, the woman in our kitchen, and the man I had loved, now a stranger. I need space, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need time to think. I don't know what I want. I don't know what we are anymore. But I can't do this tonight. I can't. Derek's face crumpled, but he didn't fight me. He didn't try to convince me otherwise. I think deep down he knew I needed distance, more distance than he could give. I walked out of the room, the weight of the world on my shoulders. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay in that house another minute. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, suffocating me with memories of a love that was now tainted. I grabbed my keys, got into the car, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to be alone, to think, to breathe. The streets were empty, and the night was cold, but it didn't matter. I rolled the windows down, letting the rush of the wind drown out the noise in my head. I didn't want to hear my own thoughts. I didn't want to think about Derek, about what he had done, about how I was supposed to move forward from this. I drove for hours until the car was low on gas, and I found myself at the edge of town, parked on a quiet street by a small park. I sat there staring out into the darkness, unsure of what to do next. I knew I couldn't keep running from this. I had to face the reality of what my life had become. But how? How do you go back to something that's been broken beyond repair? How do you rebuild a life when the foundation has crumbled? I had no answers. Not yet. I turned off the engine and sat in the silence. The cool night air washed over me, but it didn't bring peace. It brought only more questions. Was it possible to forgive him? Could we move past this, or was our love irreparably damaged? Did I even want to try? Could I ever trust him again? I didn't know the answers, and I wasn't sure I ever would. But one thing was certain. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I had to make a choice. I wiped the tears from my cheeks, took a deep breath, and started the car again. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least now I knew one thing. I couldn't go back. Not until I figured out who I was, and who I could be without him. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. Derek was still in the house, still hovering around, still trying to convince me that his mistake was something he could fix. I couldn't look at him. Every time I saw his face, the image of him with that woman flashed before me. The woman who had taken something from me that I couldn't get back. My peace of mind, my sense of security, my trust. I had always believed that love was the strongest foundation, that if you loved each other enough, you could survive anything. But love wasn't enough. It didn't heal the hurt. It didn't take away the betrayal. It didn't erase the scars that were left behind. I kept asking myself, how could he do this to me? To us? The kids were coming back from their grandparents' house in a few days. The thought of having them back in this house while everything felt broken made my stomach churn. How could I explain this to them? How could I keep up the appearance of a happy family when I could barely stand to be in the same room as their father? I needed time. Time to think. Time to breathe. But no matter where I went, no matter how far I tried to run, my mind would always circle back to that moment. That damn moment on the security footage when my world came crashing down. It was like a film that played in my head on repeat, each scene burning itself deeper into my consciousness. Derek holding that woman's hand, laughing, leaning in to kiss her in the place where we had shared so many ordinary, beautiful moments. In our home. In the kitchen we had cooked meals in together, the same kitchen where we had raised our kids, had late-night talks, had celebrated birthdays. It was all tainted now. I didn't know how to talk to Derek anymore. I didn't know how to look him in the eye without seeing the image of him with her. The anger was there, simmering under the surface, but it was also mixed with confusion. I wasn't sure if I was angry because he had cheated on me, or if I was angry at myself for not seeing the cracks before they tore everything apart. Every time I tried to talk to him, he apologized. He begged me to listen, to understand that this was a moment of weakness, that it didn't mean anything. But his words fell flat. Nothing he said could erase the image of his hands on her, of the intimacy he shared with someone who wasn't me. The trust we had built was gone, and I didn't know if I could ever rebuild it. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to. On the third day after everything happened, I decided I needed to leave. I needed a break. I couldn't stay in this house anymore. Not with the pain weighing down on every inch of it. Not with the reminders of his betrayal lurking in every corner. I packed a bag. I didn't tell Derek where I was going, didn't want to hear his pleas or his apologies. I needed space. I needed to clear my head. The house had become a prison, and I needed to escape, even if just for a while. I drove for hours, the landscape changing as I left the city behind. I didn't have a destination in mind, but I needed to be far away from everything. Far away from Derek. I ended up at a small lakeside cabin, a place I had visited once on a trip with Derek years ago. It was tucked away in the mountains, surrounded by trees, quiet and peaceful. It felt like the perfect place to get away from everything. From him that I arrived just as the sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the lake. I stepped out of the car, taking in the fresh air, the smell of pine and earth. I unpacked my bag and made myself a cup of tea, sitting on the porch, gazing out over the lake. The world seemed so different out here. Calm still, as if nothing had changed. But inside, everything had changed. Nothing would ever be the same again. I closed my eyes, letting the cool breeze brush against my face. I had been running from the truth for so long, trying to avoid facing what was happening to my marriage. But now, sitting here alone, I had no choice but to confront it. I had no distractions, no excuses. Just me. Just the pain and the reality of what Derek had done. I thought about everything. The good times, the bad, the moments that had built our life together. I thought about the love we shared, the love that felt so real, so strong. And now it felt like a lie. It felt like everything had been a lie. But then I thought about the kids. Our children. They were so innocent, so full of love and trust. They had no idea what had happened. They didn't know that their father had betrayed their mother. I could already see their little faces looking up at me, asking questions I didn't have the answers to. I couldn't shield them from the truth forever, but I didn't want them to feel the pain I was feeling. I didn't want them to grow up with a broken family. It was then that I realized that my decision wasn't just about me. It was about them too. It was about how we moved forward as a family, whether we stayed together or not. They deserved a mother who was strong, who could show them that even in the face of betrayal, there was a way to rebuild. But did I have the strength to rebuild? And if I stayed with Derek, would I ever be able to forgive him? I didn't know. The questions were too much, the answers too unclear. I spent the next few days at the cabin, trying to sort through my emotions. I walked along the lake, letting the stillness soothe me, trying to piece together the broken parts of my heart. I wrote in my journal, scrawling out my pain, my confusion, my anger. But nothing seemed to ease the ache. Called Emily one night. She was my closest friend, the one person I could always count on no matter what. But even as I heard her voice on the other end of the line, it didn't bring the comfort I had hoped for. "Lena, I don't know what to say," she said, her voice filled with concern. "I know how much you love him. But you have to ask yourself if you can ever trust him again. If you can ever forgive him for what he's done." "I don't know, Emily," I replied, my voice breaking. "I don't know if I can. Part of me wants to. I want to believe that we can fix this, that he can change. But another part of me feels like I'll never be able to trust him again. I'll never be able to look at him the same way." "You don't have to have all the answers right now," she said softly. "Take your time. Do what you need to do for you first. Don't worry about anyone else right now. Just think about what's best for you." I didn't know what was best for me, but I was starting to realize that I couldn't make any decisions while I was still reeling from the shock of it all. I needed time to heal. Time to figure out who I was, separate from Derek, separate from the life we had built. A few days later, I decided to return home. I wasn't ready to face Derek, but I knew I couldn't stay away forever. The kids would be back soon, and I needed to figure out how I was going to explain everything to them. When I pulled up to the house, Derek was waiting outside, his face pale and anxious. I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the regret. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear it. I wasn't sure if I was ready to make a decision. "Lena," he whispered, taking a step toward me. "I've been waiting for you. Please, can we talk?" I looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest. "I don't know, Derek," I said softly. "I don't know if I can forgive you. But I have to figure this out. I have to figure out if this is something we can move past, or if this is the end." His face crumpled, and I could see the guilt and fear in his eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes, Lena. I'll prove to you that I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you need. Please don't walk away." I wanted to believe him. Part of me still did. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. I didn't know if our marriage could survive this. But I was going to find out. I was going to give myself the space to make the right choice, whether it meant walking away or finding a way to rebuild. Because in the end it was about me, about my heart, my trust, and my future. I spent the next few weeks in a fog, drifting through the motions of my life without really living it. The house felt like a stranger's home. Everything was off. Like the walls knew the secrets I was desperately trying to hide. I could still hear the sounds of Derek's footsteps in the hallways, the creaking of the floorboards when he paced back and forth, waiting for me to finally speak to him. But every time I tried to face him, the words stuck in my throat. How could I talk to him after everything? How could I sit across from him at the kitchen table, just like we had before, without seeing his betrayal in every corner of the room? When the kids came back from their grandparents' house, they didn't know anything had happened. They were excited to be home, to see us all together again. Their smiles cut through me like a knife. I wanted to be that woman for them. The one who could protect them from the pain, who could hold everything together, but I couldn't do it. I didn't know how. Derek tried his best, but it was clear to both of us that we were both living in a different world now. He would reach out to me to touch my hand, but I recoiled. How could I let him touch me? How could I let him anywhere near me after what he had done? I felt like I was falling apart, but I kept telling myself I needed to be strong. For the kids, for myself. It was like I was walking on a tightrope. One wrong step and everything would crumble. But I didn't know if I even cared anymore. All I could focus on was the fact that my marriage was a lie, and that somehow, somewhere along the way I had missed the signs. How had I been so blind? Derek was trying though. I'll give him that. Every night he'd sit beside me, begging me to talk, apologizing endlessly, and promising that he'd change. That he'd do whatever it took to make it right. But I didn't know if I wanted him to. I didn't know if I wanted to believe him anymore. That's when I started really questioning everything. Was it worth fighting for? Could a marriage survive something like this? Could we? Could I? It wasn't just about him anymore, it was about me. I couldn't keep hiding from the truth of what I needed, what I wanted for myself. I needed to rediscover who I was. I needed to see if I could be whole again, with or without him. One night, after a particularly heavy argument, I decided I couldn't do this anymore. I needed more space. So I packed my bags again and left the house, this time going to stay with Emily. I needed the distance, the time to breathe. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay when everything inside me was shattered. That's when I took the decision I'd been avoiding for so long. I booked an appointment with a therapist. I knew I couldn't keep going like this, lost in the chaos of my own emotions. I needed professional help. I needed someone to help me find clarity, and I couldn't keep ignoring the fact that I was deeply hurt, that I didn't know how to begin to heal. And that's when I realized that the most important thing was that I was choosing myself. I was no longer just the woman in the marriage, I was Lena, the woman who had the right to live her truth, whether that truth included Derek or not. If you've been following my journey, or if you've ever found yourself in a situation where trust has been broken, I hope this story resonates with you. Betrayal is a painful reality, and there's no easy way to navigate through it. But the one thing I've learned is that healing is possible. Whether it's with the person who hurt you, or by walking away to find your own peace. Thank you for being here with me. If you've experienced something similar or have any thoughts on how to heal after betrayal, please leave a comment below. Let's create a safe space to share, to support, and to grow together. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can follow along on this journey of healing and self-discovery. Remember, you deserve love, peace, and respect. And above all, you deserve to choose what's best for your heart. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay strong and take it one step at a time. You're not alone.